This is your host, Danny, and this is Business English from English Plus Podcast. Today, we're going to talk about quality. Well, you might know the word quality on its own, but what does it mean in the context of business? What is quality? What is quality in manufacturing? What is quality in services? And we will talk about some other concepts in quality. But this is only the first episode I'm going to talk about quality because I will follow it up with a couple more to fully understand the concept of quality in business. So if you would like to learn more about business English, something you can use in your work and improve your English at the same time. Now, for Business English episodes, it is not only the English part we focus on, it's also the concepts that we focus on. We talk about the concepts behind those business English words. And of course, if you would like to practice what we're learning in this episode, there's a link in the description that will take you to my website, EnglishPlusPodcast.com. And it's not just going to take you there, it is going to take you to the custom post I created for this episode where you get to practice what you are learning in this episode. And there's also another link that will take you to my Patreon page. Well, I would like you to seriously consider supporting me on Patreon because that is the only way for me to continue producing the content you love here on English Plus. Go there, support me on Patreon, share this on social media, tell your friends about me, and tell them to support me as well. That will help me a lot. And by doing this, you will not only be supporting me, you will be supporting this learning community we have here in English Plus. And there are some good benefits you get when you become a patron. Just take the link, go to my Patreon page, and learn about all the great benefits you get when you become a patron. And now, without further ado, let's start talking about quality in business. So let me tell you what we're going to talk about in this episode. We're going to start talking about quality in manufacturing. Then we will talk about what quality means in services, and then we will widen our definition of quality a little bit and talk about some other points that have to do with quality. So let's start with quality in manufacturing. Now, from the point of view of producers, quality can be seen in terms of conformity or conformance to specification. What does that mean? When we talk about conformity, usually this word is alarming when it has to do with humans. With humans, we try to steer away from conformity. We don't want to be just like everybody else. We want to be individuals. We want to be special. We want to be different. And that is great when it comes to talking about your personality and the way you behave in the world. But when it comes to manufacturing, that's definitely not a good thing. And that's definitely not a good thing to call quality or high quality. When it comes to products, conformity or conformance to specification is very important. That means the components or the parts and the product as a whole are made exactly as designed. In other words, there is consistency and elimination of variation. What is the meaning of elimination of variation? That is also a word or a technical term we use in the world of quality. Elimination of variation simply means no variations. Every single component is just the same. Because when we promise you that we're going to manufacture something that conforms to some specification, we are going to deliver this product or this component exactly the same every single time. No variations. There is consistency and elimination of variation. And that results, obviously, in zero defects. All these words, conformity, conformance to specification, elimination of variation, zero defects, which means no mistakes at all in the manufacturing process. All of these are technical terms you need to learn about. But it is not just the technical terms and the English that we use to talk about quality. It's the concept. It's the idea behind it that you need to understand as well. But these words and expressions are very important to learn if you want to talk about quality. So, you see, you can't do one thing and not the other. You have to understand what you're talking about, and then you need the words to talk about whatever you want to talk about. And in our episode today, we're talking about quality, right? So, we have agreed so far, and remember, we're still talking about quality in manufacturing. We will talk about quality in services. Quality in services is a little bit different, right? But now let's focus back on quality in manufacturing. So we agreed that we need conformity or conformance to specification. The components, parts, or the product as a whole should be made exactly as designed. And, in other words, as promised. When you, for example, run an ad and tell the whole world about your product, you promise a couple of things, whatever these things are, whatever your product is. But you promise the world that you're going to deliver this product at a certain standard. And this promise has to be met every single time. There should be consistency, elimination of variation, no variations. It is not just one time I buy this washing machine and it works fine and it has all those features, and then another person buys the same washing machine, but he or she doesn't have the same features I have. Well, that doesn't work. Machines are not supposed to be different unless you're making some kind of custom-made machine, which is something else. So that all results in zero defects, no mistakes at all in the manufacturing process. So everything must be done right first time. You can't keep reworking. In the world of manufacturing, everything must be done right first time to avoid the need for reworking, which means working again on the components in order to correct the faults and defects. Well, obviously, faults and defects, we're talking about the mistakes. The design for each component embodies the intentions of its designer, so conformity to specification means putting these intentions into practice when we make the components. If we think about it in another way, that is what we call, again, the elimination of variation. Well, of course, that doesn't mean that we shouldn't be concerning ourselves with employee involvement. We need to involve our employees in manufacturing and everything, and we need to listen to their ideas to make the product better. But when we all decide on making the product in a certain way, we have to stick to this way until we find a better way to make the product. Because remember, it's a chain. And customers are used to our products the way we deliver them. When we want to make changes, it's not that there's no room for mistake. No, there is, of course, room for mistake, but it's definitely not a place for trial and error. That happens before we release the product. That's fine. And that's why many manufacturing companies have prototype projects. For prototype projects, they try new things and they see if these things work, they may become mainstream. And when they become mainstream, that means this is the main product, or this line of product at least, and we can proudly promise to customers whatever we are including in this new line of product. So that is in a nutshell what quality is in manufacturing, or what quality should be like in manufacturing. And like many ideas in relation to quality, these ideas were first developed in Japan as part of Total Quality Management, or TQM for short. But they have been copied all over the world. Now we can find these quality standards all over the world. And of course, don't worry about quality standards. We're going to talk about quality standards more in later episodes. But now that we've talked about quality in manufacturing, let's talk about quality in services. That's coming next. So when we talked about quality in manufacturing, we focused a lot on conformity, we focused on elimination of variation, etc. But when it comes to services, well, some of these concepts might work, but not all of them. Here, it's a little bit different because you are dealing with human beings directly. In services, there is a parallel situation to the one in manufacturing, but quality can also be seen from the point of view of customers. The service must satisfy customer needs. The service received by the customer must be exactly what is planned and intended. Mistakes in their accounts, for example, make customers extremely annoyed. Now here, there might be room, or there might be a little bit wiggle room for human error because the customers are dealing with employees directly, and there might be a margin for error, but it's not a big margin. Even there, customers expect to get the same service every single time. And quality here can be defined in terms of customer approval. What does that mean, customer approval? That means the recognition that we are satisfying customer needs and customer expectations. So here we have something that is kind of related to quality in manufacturing. Because for quality in manufacturing, the whole thing we care about is customer expectations, but their expectations in terms of specifications, features, etc. And here again, yes, it is services, but we also have customer expectations. So what we need to see, quality could be defined in terms of customer approval. And here, of course, if we exceed or go beyond these expectations, there may even be customer delight. We might reach that, and maybe that is something we need to aim at. Maybe we want to get there, to get to this customer delight when we exceed customer expectations, when we give them more. Of course, not going too far with that, because sometimes it's easy to do that with one customer, but it's not easy to do it with every single customer. When you want to exceed customer expectations, you can do that, but be careful. Do something that you can keep on doing. Don't do something that you can do only for one day or with only one customer, and then when the next customer comes, it's a different story. Try to keep up whatever you're doing. It's the same principle, the same grounds. We're talking about giving promises we can keep. In manufacturing, in services, maybe in services it's more direct because you're dealing directly with customers, and that is correct. But in manufacturing, it also works. You want to manage customer expectations. Of course, you want to exceed customer expectations to reach this place where we call it customer delight, extreme satisfaction, which is the goal of every single service company or even manufacturing company. But the difference is that in manufacturing, this kind of feedback is not instant. Sometimes some products take a long time before they get to the end user. But when you talk about services, it's instantaneous. It happens at the same time. You're giving the service directly to a customer. So here we need to be extra careful when it comes to quality, and we need to set a certain standard of quality that we can keep. So again, don't forget about satisfying your customer needs, seeking customer approval, that is by meeting customer expectations, and even try to exceed or go beyond these expectations to reach customer delight, that is extreme satisfaction. So that is in general what quality is when it comes to services. And now for the final part of this episode, we're going to widen the definition of quality a little bit, and we're going to talk about other aspects that have to do with quality. And here, of course, we're going to use some words we can use to talk about quality and some concepts we can use, of course, to understand quality better and maybe apply it in our own jobs. So that's coming next. Stick around.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Looking to enhance your English skills while exploring a world of knowledge? Then English Plus Podcast website is just for you. Dive into diverse topics ranging from science to literature, history to business, and myths to modern insights. Each episode from our podcast or article from our magazine is a journey of learning and discovery, designed to not only improve your language skills, but also broaden your understanding of the world. Join us at English Plus Podcast, where language meets limitless learning. Tune in today and take your English to the next level. Visit EnglishPlusPodcast.com to start your journey. English Plus Podcast, language, learning, enlightenment. Never stop learning with English Plus. So we talked about quality in manufacturing, we talked about quality in services, and of course, let me remind you even one more time that this is just an introduction. We're going to talk about quality in more detail in later episodes. But this time, just call it an introduction to quality if you like. But now, before I leave you, before I finish this episode, let me tell you a little bit about some other terms we can use to talk about quality, because quality actually can be seen in wider terms. It's not just a couple of words, conformity, blah, blah, blah. No, we have more. We have things related to quality, things like performance, features, reliability, technical durability, serviceability, aesthetics, perceived quality, and value for money. You might have heard of these expressions before, you might not. We're going to talk about them right now. Let's start with performance. What does that mean? That means how well the product performs its main function. So sometimes it's not just about that this product performs this function or does that. That is good, that's great. But how well does it perform the main function? Now, earlier I told you about washing machines. Yeah, fine. Of course, every single washing machine in the market basically washes clothes or does the laundry. But how well does it do it? That is something we need to think about when it comes to quality, the performance. It is not just it does this. How well does it do it? How well at certain points you will start to think about competition. Of course, you have to think about competition all the time, but you need to compare your performance or your product's performance to other products' performance. So how well does your product perform its main function? And remember this thing, the main function. Sometimes companies lose their focus by focusing on secondary functions. Now, for example, let's say, we're still talking about washing machines, right? The main function of the washing machine, any kind of washing machine you get from anywhere, is to do the laundry or to wash clothes. That's the main function. That's what we need to think about before anything else. That's the main thing that has to do with performance. I cannot just come and tell you that, yeah, my washing machine is great at timing the laundry and has an LCD screen that has a cool blue light that is great when it comes to... But well, I bought this washing machine for one main job. Every other thing is secondary. This main job is doing the laundry. The first thing I'm going to think about when I want to assess the performance of this washing machine is its ability to do the laundry. Does it do it well or not? After that, we can talk about other things. So remember that the performance, when you want to measure the performance of your product, first and foremost, you need to think about the main function of the product, not the secondary functions or some other things that have to do with aesthetics, which we will talk about, which might be important in some products, but in some other products, don't forget the main function of this product, right? So that was about performance. Now, what about the second thing, which is features? Here, remember, performance comes first because the main function is the most important thing, but also we have features. Features are also important. What does that mean? Features are additional parts or characteristics that the product offers. Well, that comes second in importance because the first thing, we need to make sure that the main function is working, and then we can start talking about features. But for example, when we want to buy a phone, well, the main function of the phone is to make calls, right? But that is a little bit old-fashioned because now it's taken for granted that every single mobile phone you buy from the market makes phone calls. That's not a big deal. That's not something to worry about. But the things we try to learn about more than just the main function, which is making calls, that is the features, the additional parts, the additional characteristics that this product offers. What about the camera? How many megapixels? What about the applications? How big its storage is, etc., etc., etc. The features are also an important part, especially when the main function works perfectly and there's no question about the main function. But don't forget that features do not come before the main function. Imagine that you buy a phone that has tons of features, but it doesn't make phone calls. Well, what a phone! It doesn't do the basic thing or the main function it is designed to do. I don't care about all the other features, but you get the idea. Here, I'm trying to say that every single aspect is important for quality, but sometimes some aspects are more important based on the type of product or service that you give. So we talked about performance, features. These are concepts that are very important that have to do with quality. There's also reliability. Sometimes, yes, the product performs its main function, we have some cool features, additional characteristics or parts, but the product doesn't perform reliably. And sometimes that's what differentiates high-quality products and low-quality products. Because sometimes, talking about phones, sometimes if you just look at the main function and the features, two phones are exactly the same. One phone is $100, the other one is $600 or $700 or even $1,000. Well, what's the difference? Well, of course, there is the prestige part and there's the brand and everything. Yeah, but there is this important part which made the brand famous, which is reliability. How well the product continues to perform without breakdowns. That is the key part, without breakdowns. Sometimes, yes, your product performs well and it has all the features or even more features than competitor products, but it keeps breaking down now and then. So it is not reliable. And that's why it is not high quality. So you need to remember performance, features, reliability, and there's also, talking about reliability, we need to talk about technical durability. How long the product lasts before becoming technically obsolete or out of date. Now, here you might think, well, what's the big deal about that? If it works and if it is reliable, why should we worry about that? Well, because technology is moving too fast sometimes, I would say, or at least is moving very fast, you need to know that your product that you launched today will still work a year from now. It is not going to be obsolete. Obsolete, that means out of date. A year from now, it's going to be too old. Not too old that it's not working well, but too old, too way behind the technology. And here, when it comes to the world of apps and the operating systems, that is obvious. You need to ensure technical durability. But of course, remember again, that might not be a very important thing for some products, but for some other products, it is very important. And the next point, serviceability. How easy the product is to service, maintain, and repair. Because it is not just I'm selling something and when it breaks down, just throw it away and buy a new one. For some products, it might be okay. For some products, it might be the case actually. But for some other products, no, actually, I don't want to throw it away. I paid a lot of money for this product, especially when we talk about machines that cost thousands or even hundreds of thousands of dollars. It is not easy just to say, when it breaks down, throw it away and buy a new one. No, I want to fix it. I want to know that the product is easy to service, which means maintain and repair. And here, if you want a high quality product, you need to be clear about that. The customer needs to know exactly what to do if something wrong happens, and you need to make it as simple and easy as possible. The longer the route you make towards serviceability, the less appealing your product is going to be. Because people don't usually like to go through bureaucratic nightmares before they can fix, maintain, and repair their products, their machines, whatever they are. They need something they can rely on, not only in terms of performance, but also in terms of services. So again, that might not be very important for some products, but for most products, that's very, very important. And now the next point, which is aesthetics, the look and feel of the product. Well, again, that depends on the product. The look and feel of the product, when it comes to phones, that might be very important. Or actually, that is very important, the look and feel of the product. A lot of people buy iPhones not because iPhones are much better than Samsung or other brands, but because they love the look and feel. And of course, the performance, the features, all of the things I just mentioned work just fine for iPhone and for Samsung. Now, we're saying, for example, I'm just saying, I know that some people like Samsung more or other brands, and some people just prefer iPhone. But this is not about a contest between iPhone and Samsung. Please don't go there. I'm just saying that imagine that both of them have great quality, but when it comes to the look and feel, well, you might like one more than the other. And that might be important for your product. That might be important for the quality of your product, the aesthetics. The aesthetics can play a great part when it comes to your product, and maybe it's not that important. Maybe your product is a heavy-duty machine, and it is not about how it looks, but how it performs. Maybe. And maybe it's just a phone. So when it is just a phone, when it is a phone, for example, aesthetics is a big deal. So the look and feel of the product sometimes is very important, and you need to think about that also in terms of quality. And one more point you need to think about when it comes to thinking about quality, it's not just quality, it's the perceived quality. What does that mean? Perceived quality? Quality is quality. I made something, it's great. Every single one of us tried it and it's great. But remember, you might be the genius who made this product and you might be great. I'm not saying you're not. You might be great. You might be the most intelligent person alive and you made this product. You really like it. You love it. But what about your customers? The customer's judgment of the product's level of quality in general. Do they perceive your product as high quality, low quality, or somewhere in between? You need to know about that. You might think of your product as high quality, which might be, but what about the customers? Now here, of course, that leads us to marketing and your audience or your market, etc. But that's not the point here. I'm not going to focus on marketing in this episode. We're talking about quality here. So it is not only the quality you think you should have. Well, you might be a great judge, and that's very good, but don't forget about the customer's judgment of the product's level of quality, the perceived. That's what we call perceived quality. So that is also another aspect you need to think about when it comes to quality. And finally, for this episode, of course, because there's a lot more about quality that I will talk about in later episodes, the final thing for today is value for money. We hear that a lot. What does that mean? What the product does in relation to the price paid for it. And again, it's not only your opinion. You need to know the customer's opinion. Is it good value for money or not? Maybe your product is great and it does a lot of things. It is reliable, durable, serviceable, everything, and the aesthetics are great. The perceived quality in general is great, but guess what? It's not good value for money. It's too expensive. So you need to think about pricing. You need to think about pricing, and here comes a lot of factors. We're talking about competition. We're talking about a big market that has a lot of things, and you need to place yourself correctly in the market so you know who your competitors are so that you can get good prices compared to your competitors so that you have good value for money. But that is also something you need to think about. Value for money, that means what the product does in relation to the price paid for it. And with that, we come to the end of today's episode. Don't forget, you can practice what you've learned on my website. The link is in the description. Take the link right now. Go to the website, practice what you've learned, because trust me, if you don't practice, you're going to forget 90% of what I just said. And it is fun just to check what you've understood. And don't worry, the practice on my website is completely anonymous. So it is made just for you to practice and learn. It's not for me to know who did well and who didn't. That's not the point. And it's not a quiz after all. It's not a test. It's just something for you to check your understanding of what we talked about here. So take the link, go to EnglishPlusPodcast.com to this custom post I created for this episode. Practice what you've learned and have fun. And don't forget to support me on Patreon because I'm actually counting on your support to continue. That being said, this is your host, Danny. Thank you very much for listening to another episode from English Plus Podcast. I will see you next time.